Luke Pollard.
I'd like to congratulate my friend from Strangford for securing this debate. An annual fisheries debate should be in the calendar each and every year, and it should be in the calendar ahead of the December Fisheries Council, so we can give as much power to the elbow for the Minister as we possibly can to ensure that the deal that she goes to negotiate, albeit from outside the room, will be as good for our fishers as it possibly can. Because fishing matters. It matters in Plymouth, where there's nearly 1,000 jobs that rely not only on the catching, but the processing sectors and the associated trades that go along with it, supply chains and exporters as well. But it matters because it's part of our identity. And I think as a coastal community, Plymouth is no different to many other coastal communities that I see represented around the room here, in the fact that we want to see our fishers get a better deal than they have so far. And I agree with the honourable member from Lowestoft in his remarks that actually we've started our time as an independent coastal state quite poorly. And that is because of a botched Brexit deal, it was because of over-promising to our fishers, and it is because, frankly, when it came to the crunch, fishers were regarded as being disposable by the negotiators, and they must not ever be regarded as being disposable. This industry matters. Before I start my remarks, I just want to say that fishing does take too many people. It is a dangerous profession, and we need to remember those people not only at home but abroad who lose their lives to accidents at sea, but also that are injured at sea as well. But progress is happening on safety. I'd like to play in particular praise for Clive Palfrey, who's an RNLI coxswain and a former fisherman, for his work in taking the search out of search and rescue to start putting locator beacons on life jackets. The Plymouth Life Jacket Scheme that the Minister did support with a grant has been a huge success, and its continued nationwide rollout, I think, is one that we should continue to encourage because it will save lives. I also want to pay tribute to the RNLI, who 24/7, all year round, provide support for our fishers, in particular thanking those people who've dedicated their entire lives to doing so. MILF, or Dave Milford, as he's better known, has given 32 years' service to Plymouth at the RNLI, and the gratitude that the fishing industry has to him is echoed by myself and to many others whose lives he has saved. He also has an amazing nickname, which also helps. It's also worth mentioning that the Coast Guard and the Coast Watch, National Coast Watch Institution, which my stepmother is a member of, also do a superb job all year round. It was in the pandemic where we saw the fishing industry hardest hit, not only by a botched Brexit deal, but by their export markets and their domestic markets closing. In that respect, I want to give a shout out to Call for Fish, a superb Plymouth initiative that started out with a shoestring budget that is now supporting fishers nationwide selling their catch directly from the back of their boats. And it was thanks to the seafarers and the fishmonger hall charities for helping put their confidence in that. It shows that we continue to be pioneers in Plymouth. I would have liked a wee bit more support from DEFRA on that initiative, but there's still time to be supportive. And so I'd like that. But I'm afraid when it comes to fishing policy, not all is well. Fishers do feel betrayed, especially over the 6 to 12 mile promise that was broken. They also feel betrayed that much of the money that's been promised to them in redeveloped opportunities have not come through. And I know the Minister will look kindly on an application made by Plymouth for help us to redevelop our own fish market, to bring our facilities into the 21st century, not only providing better and more cost-effective location for landing, processing and selling fish, but also making sure that we've got a sustainable future for that industry in Plymouth, but also supporting the industry right around the southwest coast at the same time. The NFFO report that came out from former senior DEFRA negotiator Gary Taylor, I think, set out the numbers that many of us suspected. The losses of £64 million a year to our fishing industry. That's not just eating away at margin, that is breaking businesses. And we do need to recognise that exporters have been hit, in particular because of the additional red tape and additional costs and problems with small exporters, many of whom have simply stopped exporting, stopped selling into our EU markets. And there remain problems, especially with live bivalve molluscs around the southwest, although some waters have been reclassified as Grade A, and I see my friend from further up the Devon coast who is very cheerful about that. Not all those waters have. And that means for those businesses that fish in Grade B waters still, they are unable to export their live bivalve molluscs to markets in the European Union, and after another season of that, I worry whether there will be any business available for them whatsoever, and that does need to be addressed. The French disputes that we've seen over the past few months have been difficult for our fishers. They have added extra caution to people going to sea, extra worry about fishing in French waters in particular. I would like the Minister to explain to the House when she gets to her feet what lessons have been learned, especially from the fishing boat that was detained, details being left off the database that was provided to the French by the UK authorities, because I think a little bit of honesty would go a long way in supporting that. Fishing airlines is a really important part, and they're part of our big family that have been hit by a botched Brexit deal, and I hope the Minister responds to that point. Very finally, Madam Chair, I just want to return to the December Fisheries Council to ask the Minister in particular around what is her expectation around shared stocks. What is the science that we're asking for in relation to this? Because much of the extra promised fish that the government made a lot of in the announcement is paper fish. It only swims on spreadsheets. It does not exist in the sea, and it was a fabrication and a fiction, and fishers know it. So how can we be ensured that any deal that may come out of the December Fisheries Council that affects our shared stocks will be based on science and will be catchable? What are we doing in relation to non-quota species? Because I think there's a real concern about how some of that sits. And I would also like the Minister to recognise that the absence of a deal for Norway, fishing in distant waters, is causing real pressure. Not for fishers in Plymouth, but certainly for the fishers that I met when I went to Hull to see the deep, distant water fleet there. There's a real concern that a lack of a deal with Norway is going to collapse that part of that sector, which is a really proud part of Hull's fishing past, but also its present and future as well. Finally, I would like to know what the government's plan for net zero for fishing is, because each and every time our fishing boats go to sea, they consume an enormous amount of diesel, pumping a large amount of carbon into the atmosphere, and I would like the government to have a strategy that has a date as to when fishing will become net zero, not just because they're buying offsets for the larger companies, but because they are decarbonising their propulsion and having more sustainable ways. There's quite some challenges there, but I've enjoyed my chance to serve on the front bench, and I say to the Minister that I'll continue to ask difficult questions from the back benches about fishers, especially for those from Plymouth. Thank you.